If you were not in tears by the end of this episode, I don't know what you're doing with your life. So this episode opens up with us seeing how Charlie is handling the aftermath from the previous episode of her meal being burned, to Romero finding out what happened on the farm with the immigrant workers, and how Charlie was responsible for their death. And we're seeing basically that Charlie is not handling these things well at all. And honestly, I don't know if there's a good way of handling it anyway. But I do know alcohol is not the answer. But, you know, Charlie turns to alcohol, unfortunately. What I find interesting is that we later learn, due to Micah using his phone, an app on his phone to track his mother, we later learned that she actually went to New Orleans. She's in New Orleans, pretty much getting wasted at some bar, which could be like a bar inside of a restaurant or a hotel. You know, it looks kind of like a high-end type of bar that she's sitting at. But what I find interesting is that she went to New Orleans to do it. And of course, she wouldn't want to stay in her town of St. Joe because of the fact that, you know, she's running for councilwoman. So if anyone recognized her, you know, and chances are they will, because she's running for councilwoman. So she wouldn't want, it wouldn't be in her best interest to get wasted like that in a bar that is local, or a facility that is local. So it makes sense that she decided to go to New Orleans to do so. But that also goes to show just how stressed out she was, that she traveled that far, or, you know, and that she traveled a distance just to be able to relieve her stress by drinking. So what we also see is that Nova has met up with her cousin, her distant cousin, her mother's distant cousin, a relative of the family who she learned about through one of her, I guess you could say, book interviews on one of her book tour stops. She learned that she had a relative, or that her mother had a relative, and she honestly thought she was the last female on her mother's side, to the last surviving female, but actually it turns out she's not. She had a distant cousin of her mother's, and this distant cousin actually is a woman who has what is called healing powers. Basically, they have the gift of healing, but she turned away from her gift at a very young age, and apparently so did Nova's mother. And Nova also has inherited that gift. And if some of you may remember, in the earlier seasons, like the first season and the second season, or especially I believe the first season, we got to see Nova use her healing powers. You know, she's always, or at least in those earlier seasons, she was always cooking up some type of concoction, some sort of healing concoction. Like, that's her thing, dealing with the herbs and spices and stuff from the earth, you know. And I think that is awesome, by the way. I also heard that their mother's maiden name is Labossiere. So, you know, the woman kept mentioning, you know, the women of the Labossiere family were called to be healers, and it was, you know, their decision on whether or not they were going to answer that call. And Nova actually thought that her mother did not answer the call because she became pregnant with Nova, so Nova felt like she was just a mistake. But the cousin quickly reminded Nova, or quickly let Nova know, like, no, your mother, you know, came to realize there was no mistakes in this life, you know, and she did not see Nova as a mistake. So it was just interesting to see that Nova felt that way about herself. You know, she felt like she was a mistake. Also, what I thought was interesting, and I don't know if we're going to hear more about this later on, I feel like we will, is the fact that the cousin basically confirmed that the mother was not cremated. The mother was buried on the family farm. But for some reason, Nova was under the impression by her father that her mother, Trudy, was cremated and that her ashes were scattered. So I thought that was interesting. Why would the father feel the need to lie? So I don't know what that's all about. I'm very interested in finding out, you know, what is Nova going to follow up with that? Is she's going to figure out where her mother is buried? I'm pretty sure they're not revealing that to just let it go. So I'm pretty sure we're going to hear more about that in the future. I also want to point out that the cousin gave a remedy book to Nova that used to belong to her mother. So that's interesting as well. I think that's really awesome. I think that's like a family heirloom. I think that's interesting that there is a gift like that that runs through a family. You know, that's just very interesting. So anyway, moving on to Aunt Vi. I want to jump to Aunt Vi because she doesn't really have too much going on in this episode, so I feel like I can go ahead and get her out the way. Aunt Vi pretty much was addressing Hollywood in the way that she's feeling now. I don't know about you all, but what she just addressed and revealed to Hollywood kind of threw me off guard. I was not ready for this. The fact that she felt like when she saw Hollywood defend her honor against Jimmy Dale, she actually beat the way Hollywood reacted and beat up pretty much Jimmy Dale actually was intimidating for her. So it was meant to protect her. The action that Hollywood took was meant to protect her, but it actually made her feel intimidated by Hollywood. And again, you know, I think victims of domestic violence probably would be more likely to understand her position. But for myself personally, I don't, you know, it kind of threw me off like, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me an action that he took to protect you is actually, you know, made you turn off from him? Like he's turning you off by that. And I get it though when she explained that, because it seemed like with Jimmy Dale, when she was with Jimmy Dale, what happened that she first saw his violent tendency was when he beat up someone for making advances towards her. So it didn't start out with him beating her. It started off with her watching him beat someone else. So in return, now that she saw Hollywood beat Jimmy Dale, she knows, as she says, that he would never do that to her, but still it's those memories, it's the unresolved issues that she hasn't dealt with when it comes to Jimmy Dale and what has happened to her mentally, physically, and emotionally. So I do like that she's addressing this with Hollywood. She's keeping that line of communication open with him, and that's really good, because I completely understand that Hollywood is new to this and he's probably like, oh gosh, what am I supposed to do? How can I make it better? But I do like that she told him, listen, you can't make it better. This is what I need right now. This is what I'm going to have to do. So the fact that communication is there, and I feel like that's what's going to keep their marriage strong. Because for a minute I was like, whoa, wait a minute, is she getting ready to ask her brother for a divorce? But I realized, you know, from through sickness and health, for better or for worse, and they keeping by her keeping that line of communication open with Hollywood and making sure that he knows where she's at on this journey, I think that is what's going to always keep them together, because she's not keeping him in the dark. She's not leaving him to feel completely helpless. She's letting him know, baby, it's got nothing to do with you. I should have dealt with these issues, and now these issues have, you know, pretty much come back to, you know, to reconcile. And one of the things that she did say to Hollywood was, things don't go away just because you ignore them. And I think many of us can agree, who have experienced some sort of trauma in our lifetime, that things do not go away just because we ignore them. They always seem to come back to surface for us to deal with. So anyway, moving on to Hollywood, I also want to say, I thought it was interesting because Hollywood had a special little encounter with Ralph Angel, where Ralph Angel was pretty much spilling his soul to Hollywood in regards to what he's going through. And I did recognize, before, you know, Hollywood mentioned this to Vi at the end, I did recognize Hollywood was terrible with, you know, his advice to Ralph Angel in regards to what Ralph Angel was going through. I'm like, really, Hollywood? That's it? And then even when he walked off from Ralph Angel, it was like, that's all he got to say. So, you know, I could see, you know, Hollywood doesn't really know how to deal with things emotionally, especially between men. And then when he was at the table with his former co-workers from the rig, and they were discussing the whole fight between Jimmy Dale, and they were coming off from a perspective of celebrating Hollywood's defeat over Jimmy Dale, but Hollywood was trying to come at an angle of emotion. He was basically trying to come from a different angle, like, okay, it's not just about being macho and that I beat up Jimmy Dale, you know, maybe I could have handled it a different way, you know, especially now that Violet has opened my eyes to it. Maybe I should have did something differently. But these guys are like, no, man, if that was my wife, this is what I do. And you can clearly tell, like, you know, and I'm sure men understand this better than I do, that there is a thing between some men where it's like you're not supposed to come from a place of emotion. You're not supposed to come from a place of critical thinking. It's just macho, beat my chest and see who, you know, who wins. I don't know. You know, that's some male stuff right there, either man stuff. But I like that Hollywood did mention to Vi, like, what if there was a support group for men? I find all these flyers about support groups for women. What about us men? Maybe if we had support groups that teach us how to deal with our emotions, our aggression, and in a more appropriate manner, a more effective manner, then maybe we wouldn't be doing some of the things that we do, you know. And I really appreciate that, because I 100% agree with Hollywood. I have been saying this for like over a year now, due to the fact that I've awakened to this as well, that there seems to be more resources for women than there are men, especially when it comes to black men, and especially when it comes to black male trauma, black male psyche, black male mental health, black male physical health. I mean, so many things there seems to be lacking for black men as far as resources go. It's almost non-existent. So I'm really glad that Queen Sugar went there, because it really needs to be said, and something needs to be done about it. A lot needs to be done about it. So moving on from Hollywood, who I absolutely love. Y'all know how I feel about Hollywood. Anyway, moving on, we have Ralph Angel. Guys, listen. You know, Darla was working my last nerves in this episode. When I do these, you know, discussions, I try to talk from the perspective of each character and empathize with whatever they're going through. However, Darla was working my nerves, because it's like, okay, you and Ralph Angel are not together anymore. Child, what are you tripping on? But I honestly feel like, Darla does definitely still have feelings for Ralph Angel. But I also feel like Darla is in this weird place where she's kind of watching everyone else move forward, and she's kind of stagnant. I feel like she's kind of stagnant at the moment. And so, okay, for example, you know, Darla is tripping over the fact that Blue's best friend is the I think it's a girl, right? She's the daughter of Ralph Angel's new girlfriend. And, you know, Darla is like tripping over that, upset that she wasn't told about this. And even Ralph Angel was like, Darla, it's not a big deal. And to be honest, I felt like it wasn't a big deal. You know, why does that really matter? But that's, I guess you could say that's when we can see that Darla may still have feelings for, well, not May, she has feelings for Ralph Angel. But I don't even think it's limited to that. I truly believe Darla is just in this awkward place right now in life where she needs to figure out what her purpose in life is. And I think she's watching everyone else move on with their life and feeling left behind. So she ends up going to her boyfriend, friend, male friend, whatever you call him, Leo, and to go to his rehearsal and offer him some beignets. Okay, she could have gave me them beignets. I ain't never had no beignets. I would love to try some beignets. Listen, but you know, I felt like she should have took them. By the way, by the end of that encounter, I feel like she should have just took her beignets and left. But she classy, she left them. I wouldn't have left them. But anyway, Leo basically tells her, look, I read the book, and of course that's Darla's worst fear, that all these folks in town is getting a hold of this book. But especially, you know, the man that she's trying to be with, trying to get to know, Leo. And Leo lets her know, I read the book. And Darla's like, okay, fine, you want to break up with me because of the things that you read. But Leo says, no, it's not about your past. You know, what it's about is, I feel like you're on the verge of relapsing. I feel like Leo is a great person to make that assumption, or that okay, I can go with assumption, make that assumption, because he is someone himself who is a recovering addict too. So the fact that he's able to observe something that he probably are, I'm sure he has to know about the signs of what it looks like when someone is on the verge of relapsing, and the fact that he respects himself enough to say, you know what, for the sake of my sobriety, I'm gonna have to we just gonna have to chill for a while. I don't see anything wrong with that. At the end of the day, you know, I think we all can see Darla seems like she's a ticking time bomb. She honestly don't need to be in a relationship with anyone, in my opinion. She needs to take a step back and continue to focus on her purpose. She needs a purpose. The child is everywhere and everybody else's business. She needs a purpose in her life, and to focus on being sober and staying that way. And eventually she can get to the point when she's completely over Ralph Angel, because I feel like the only reason she keeps going back to Leo is because she's getting confirmation that Ralph Angel has moved on. When she's completely over Ralph Angel and she's completely into her sobriety, that's when I think she needs to be worried about being booed up. But at the moment, she's got to find a purpose other than Ralph Angel, other than Blue, other than Leo, and other than the bottle. So that's pretty much all I can say about that. Basically, Leo and Darla are no longer at the moment, and Darla pretty much experienced a breakdown after hearing from Blue over the phone that Blue was interacting with his best friend, and of course his best friend mother, who happens to be Ralph Angel's current boo. And that really took Darla over the edge. It should have been a moment to celebrate what Blue was saying, but I know she was distracted by the fact that he was pretty much having fun with Ralph Angel's new girlfriend. So that took Darla kind of over the edge, where we see in the end she's contemplating whether or not she should drink some alcohol. And she's at the point where she's getting ready to raise the bottle up, but she slams the bottle back down and just, breaks down. And don't get me wrong, I feel kind of terrible for Darla, but at the same time, I feel optimistic for her. I feel like this is a good place she's at. She's facing off with her demons. She's facing off with her past. She's facing off with all of these things that she has feared, that will happen. And I feel like once she faces that, like all of us, when we face our fear and conquer it, everything moving forward is peaches and cream just about. It's like, okay, I did that. I conquered that. So you can't tell me nothing about what I'm getting ready to do next. Yeah, I may fall sometimes, but I'm going to get back up and I'm going to slay those dragons. So I'm really optimistic about Darla and where she's going to be moving forward. I just feel like she needs a purpose greater than all these other things in her life that focuses strictly on her and her happiness, because without it, I feel like she's going to always be codependent on the bottle or other people. Moving on, we have Prosper, okay? Prosper in his boo thing, as I call the lady, because I can never catch her name. I believe they're saying her first name is Geneva, but I can never catch her name completely. But Prosper in his boo thing, they come to the diner to speak to Vi about doing something special for Charlie to lift her spirits, because everyone pretty much assumes Charlie is going through it. She's MIA. They haven't seen her in a while. And I really was wondering, like, okay, what is Prosper cooking up? And so was Violet. She was like, okay, with your mysterious self, you doing something. And so we get to see throughout the episode there are things coming together for that. For example, there's a point where Micah goes over to Ralph Angel's house and he picks up like some Christmas lights, and I'm wondering, like, okay, it's not Christmas, so what are he doing with them lights? But we eventually learn in the end what that's for, and I'll get there in a minute. We also see, speaking of Micah, that Micah's girlfriend comes over while Charlie again is gone in New Orleans on her drinking binge at the moment. Micah's girlfriend is basically confronting Micah about being physically active after prom, or however they plan on doing this, which I told you on the previous discussion. I don't want to know that, but since he's part of this episode, I have no choice but to address it. Micah, and I feel like, it's a lesson learned for some people. I don't know, I don't want to know. But anyway, Micah and his girlfriend are pretty much trying to figure out if this is what they're going to do. Are they really going to take their relationship, if you want to call it that, kitty love, to the next level? And Micah actually confides in Ralph Angel when he goes to pick up those Christmas lights. He confides in Ralph Angel about whether or not this is something he should do. And what I like about Ralph Angel is that he offered his advice while still pushing Micah to listen to his own heart. So it wasn't like Ralph Angel was saying, oh, no, go do it, or no, you shouldn't do it. It was more so like, and I would say this because he's coming from an uncle perspective. Now, if he was his father, I would like to see a different conversation than what I saw between Ralph Angel and Micah. But because that's his uncle, I completely understand that Ralph Angel is, the uncle, and he's pretty much letting them know, listen to your heart. What is your heart telling you to do? If your heart is saying, if you feel like this is not the time, then it's not the time, But also, too, Micah said, he feels like this is the real deal. He's worried about college. He's worried about all these things. Then he mentioned he's worried about his father and how his father and his mother turned out. And I like that Ralph Angel said to him, listen, you're not your father. You ain't your daddy. It's okay. Like, you can't live like that. You can't live fearing doing things because you saw your parents or other people do it and they were not successful at doing it. You're not them. You deserve a chance to live out your dreams too. Now, I don't know if that's his dream. I mean, I'm sure it is his dream to be with his girlfriend in this manner. But like I said, I hate even addressing this. They're young. Go sit down somewhere. Go read a book. Anyway, moving on from them. Now I'm coming back to Charlie, okay? So Charlie is like the spine of this episode. We just continuously see her at the bar. Even though the bartender insisted on this woman leaving the bar, she would not leave. So when Micah figures out where she's at, I guess he ends up contacting Nova. Nova ends up showing at the bar. You guys, Nova was the last person I expected to show up at the bar. I honestly thought, I don't know why, I thought Micah was going to be the one to end up showing up there. But I really like how they wrote this, because it ended up being Nova. And I like this because I kept saying to myself, how is Nova going to fix this with them? Now, in this episode, it may seem like she has fixed things with Charlie, maybe, but I'm pretty sure that does not roll over to Ralph Angel. And I'm pretty sure she's going to have to work a lot harder with Vi. But anyway, getting back to the bar, Nova shows up. Charlie is very reluctant to leave with Nova, and Charlie is like breaking down because even though she's trying to fight off Nova helping her, and she even said like, no, not you, she knows she needs someone to get her out of there before someone recognizes her. She knows she's a mess, and she knows she can't drive, so she needs someone's help, and especially she should go for someone she can trust, because in a state of drunkenness and trying to attempt to get a ride home, the one thing you don't really want to do is rely on strangers, because you never know what a stranger could do as far as take advantage of you and in a drunken state. So it's like, okay, I mean, it is my sister, you know, rather deal with the devil I know than the devil I don't know. But nah, Nova's not a devil. She just has terrible judgment. Anyway, moving on, we see, and this is the part where the episode had me in tears. When Nova was putting Charlie to bed, you know, helping Charlie get undressed, helping her get dressed in her nightie, and how Nova wanted to grab her sister's hand and her sister pulled away from her, and it was painful for Nova. And Nova, you know, Nova knew she was in the wrong, so it's like, okay, whatever, I'm going to still be here for you. You know, I'm going to bite this bullet and I'm going to still be here. And when Nova went to exit the room, Charlie said to her, you know, why would you say those things about me? Child, listen, I was already in tears, and Charlie is breaking down. Nova's trying to explain, like, you know, I shouldn't have done it. I thought I was genuinely helping you all. And that's the thing. I truly believe that's really Nova's thing. Like, Nova really thought she was trying to help someone in Nova's own radical way. She really did. She did not mean any harm at all. But, you know, of course, her book has really traumatized and brought about a lot of people's past. So it's traumatized, and it's her family, it's her loved ones. We aren't talking strangers. This is her family. So anyway, Charlie is breaking down in the bed crying, and Nova decides to stay with her overnight and just kind of hold her sister. And I'm telling you, when Charlie was bawling, I was bawling right with her. I don't know why. It was emotional. So by the morning time, Charlie wakes up to find, you know, a beautiful breakfast laid out for her. I guess Nova is obviously gone. There's also a paper, and in that newspaper is an article specifically by Nova that is titled, you know, that why Charlie is her role model. And it was beautiful. We got to hear the reading of it with Nova's voiceover, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was also endorsing Charlie's councilwoman position, which is a good look for Charlie, especially combating those who did read the book about Charlie. So to hear that the very same woman that wrote the book about Charlie's past actions is now endorsing Charlie and pushing forgiveness, I think that's going to do really good for the community and for the residents. I think that's going to stress, you know, forgiveness for them as well. So that's a good look, basically. And I think Charlie was pleasantly surprised as well. So in the end, we see Micah come and pick up Charlie and tell him, like, look, Ma, you got to come see something. And she's like, listen, I'm hungover. Leave me be. No, she didn't really say that, but I feel like that's how she was feeling. But Micah took Charlie to the Queen Sugar Mill, where we finally get to see what Prosper and Geneva had been cooking up and what Micah needed those Christmas lights for. So there was a big old shindig going on. That was basically, I want to say, it was kind of like a gathering of the community to say, listen, we're not going anywhere, and in the words of Prosper, we will not be moved. You know, he said that historically our people has been known, which is very true. Our people, as in black people in America, has been known to create something out of nothing. And that is very true. That was a powerful line, even though it's cliche. Many of us have heard it time and time again. But if you really sit back and marinate on that and think about it, like really, really marinate in it, and think about examples of so-called black Americans who really did have to do that. Like, we really have done that time and time again. No matter what is taken from us, no matter what is burned down, no matter who is slaughtered, no matter who is attempted to be destroyed, no matter what they do to us, no matter what opposition comes our way, we always manage to bounce back. And that is historical for us. That is something we should be proud of. That is something we should always remember when each of us as individuals have dragons that come our way that we have to slay. So it was beautiful, and I see it really inspired Charlie. I was very excited to see everyone on the stage together. You had Ralph Angel, Nova, Charlie, Prosper, Geneva, Hollywood, Vi. And like I said, I don't know if everyone else has exactly made amends with Nova, but the fact that they could all come together like that to remind Charlie she is not alone, because I think that's the biggest thing, is that she's been carrying all of this on her own shoulders. And now, you know, she recognizes like she can't do it all by herself. She needs help, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to lean on other people for that help. So I think that was really awesome. I just love the way the episode ended. Like I said, by the end of this episode, I was in tears. And if you weren't, I don't know what you're doing with your life. So anyway, that's it for this episode. I'll see you all next week, hopefully for another episode. Peace.